I'd like to thank all of you for sticking around for this late session. I said earlier I'm worried about the future of Texas. And I wouldn't run unless I thought that it was important. We've underfunded education. We've underfunded water. We've underfunded transportation. We're trying to destroy women's health care in Texas. And all that needs to be changed. But let's go back and look at the role of government. Our parents and some of our grandparents, after World War II, they won World War II. They rebuilt Germany and Japan. They put in the interstate system. They electrified the country. They put in Medicare and Social Security. They did civil rights. They took us to the moon. And if you recall, under Eisenhower, the marginal tax rate was 80%. Under Reagan, the marginal tax rate was 50%. Today we have the lowest tax rates at the federal level of any in our history. Modernism. And yet we hear over and over again, we're overtaxed. And here in the state of Texas, I'm tired of hearing there's no money for schools, there's no money for roads, there's no money for water. And yet the same people that are telling you that are standing up and saying, our economy is doing better than anybody else in the nation. So the question is, where is all that money going? Are we going to invest in our children? Are we going to invest in the future of this great state? Or are we going to try and take all that money and put it in our pockets and go home? Walk up, pull up the ladder behind us, and leave the rest of this state and our children and our grandchildren to look at Hunger Games. Thank you.
Chris, let me first thank you for your service to our country and your sacrifice. I also served in the Army for 10 years as a company commander and the engineer officer. So, so it's important that we do that sort of thing, and I appreciate your service. I said earlier that I'm an unashamed conservative, and in spite of what Mr. Tanner says, I am not a big government Republican. I'm one of those who thinks that our taxes are still too high. I don't think we've got a revenue problem. I still think we have a spending problem. And Mr. Franzen talked about underfunding and all these things, but he didn't talk about how he was going to pay for it, and the translation there is he's going to raise your taxes. And I am not going to do that. Earlier it was talked about the cuts in the school districts. Well, if you take the 5 major school districts in District 47 and you go back 10 years and you look at the amount of money per student they spent 10 years ago, and you add growth and you add the CPI to it, they all kind of kept up with that. There were not draconian cuts. The average school spends about $10,000 per student, and we cut them $500 per student. That's 5%. In 2011, when we went there were businesses all over who were having to make 40 and 50% cuts. My own business was even more than that. And so we had to learn to live with less. I had a school superintendent come to me, not a school superintendent, beg your pardon, a school board member come to me and whispered to me, we are actually glad that you cut us because it's forced us to reset and to rethink about what's important in our school district. Most of the school districts in District 47 are doing just fine. Students are still being educated, and they're going on to college, those that want to, and they're doing just fine. Let me talk a minute about the sonogram bill. This gentleman talked about forcing a vaginal sonogram. That is not the case. Nor is it the case that women are forced to view the screen. I mean, who in here would have a medical procedure and not expect to be able to see the results of those tests? This bill simply said that a woman had the right to see that screen. And I believe that life begins at conception. And as such, the right of that child in the womb is due the respect and the protection of the state of Texas. And you may not believe life begins at conception,
Not your job.
but I do. And that's the reason that I supported the Sonic Grant bill, because I believe that that should be it. I'm Paul Workman. I hope to be able to go back. I hope you'll vote for me, and we'll continue the work that we've done up at the legislature. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all. Thank you all for coming. Have a good night.